afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for staying here. I know there's lots of fantastic booths out there to be, but let's try and take this forward. I really appreciate being invited to be part of this today from the International Water Management Institute, but also the preceding speakers, because they have really given us information, whether it's about data analytics or about wastewater treatment plants or the new advances on that. But now is the time to bring it together. So the International Water Management Institute is a not-for-profit international organization. We are based across offices across Asia, Africa, and of course the Middle East. And I have a particular pleasure in coming back to Abu Dhabi, in that I was living in the UAE for more than 12 years, in Saudi Arabia for 4, so I love the Gulf states. And whilst I was here, we actually worked with the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi as we wrote their first, what we call recycled water plan, their strategic plan. That was back in 2010, 2011. So it's fantastic to see the development since there. But what we need to do is, we've been hearing about the engineering technologies, we've been hearing about that, but we have to optimize the use of wastewater. And to do that, we're looking at a way we can do that in a planning and a prioritization tool. The work we're doing is being sponsored by Google Foundation. Google MENA region is based in Dubai, and they came to us just saying, we've got COP28. What is it that Google can bring to COP28 here in Dubai that's really going to help water and the region really adjust to climate change? And this is the idea that we gave to them, and we are delighted to be working with them on this. So we are working in 3 different countries: Saudi, UAE, and Egypt. And if you look at their policies, their prioritization for water up until 2030, each one very much emphasizes wastewater reuse. And the priorities that they have vary across the policies. In the UAE, it's about recharge, it's about environmental landscaping, it's about use in industry. In Saudi, we're working with the Saudi Irrigation Organization of use in landscapes and in agriculture, as well as other types of recharge. And in Egypt, it's about supplementary irrigation, and it's about what's going on in their canal system. Each of these 3 countries, different types of water stress, different priorities, and also safety and regulatory approaches to wastewater reuse. So, okay, how are we going to manage that wastewater? Well, we know that it has to start with the data. Where are the wastewater treatment plants? Where are they? Do we really know where they all are? And what we know from talking to these organizations is, yes, there are the municipal ones that are run by governments and municipalities, but there are also many private ones. And in none of those 3 countries I spoke about is there a complete database of where are the wastewater treatment plants. And there's also the very little understanding about how are we actually reusing the water, and how can we prioritize and use that in the area. So this is where we need to bring technology, and in particular AI, into helping fill those data gaps. So the solution is a tool that we've developed with these, or co-designing with these countries, on what is it we can do to then be able to make sure we can reuse that water in industry and agriculture and environment going forward. And we are harnessing AI for this. So this is the 6 pillars, but I want us to focus on 1, 2, and 3. We first of all need to know, where's the wastewater treatment plants, what's its production, what's the capacity. We need to know what's the demand for that water, and then how are we going to bring those together in an optimization routine. So what we're doing here is we're using satellite imagery, but think about, what does a wastewater treatment plant, how are we going to spot it? So this is where we're using computer vision and AI. And we've got 3 different approaches. There's one about image classification, and this of course has been used for a long time, and we can spot water quite well in a satellite imagery. But but there's lots of reasons why there might be water there. So we've also been looking at object detection and image segmentation. detection. We need to know where are those wastewater treatment plants and everything around that, and not be detecting other types of water, other types of round silos that might be there for that. And so we've been using these automatic detections and training using AI to be able to find them. And we can begin to look at how object identification is. We can now be able to, through these trained modelings, be able to then spot the objects, those wastewater treatment plants, be able to look at the size and the capacity, and be able to then bring that into our planning. So we can see that the curves is taking quite a lot of training, but we're now quite confident that we are able to automatically detect. And this is an example of where we've been able to fill in some gaps. We have the field data. We know where some of those wastewater treatment plants are in Saudi Arabia. We're able to look at maps, but also then the blue dots are showing where we've used AI detection to bring into that national planning the areas, particularly those private those systems. They might be to do with housing communities. They might be to do with industrial community enterprises. Where are those new plants? And this is what we've been able to do, being able to bring this into an integrated dashboard map on that. So that's told us where the plants are. What we're now able to do is, through a modeling approach, we're also able to look at how is the wastewater being used? What's the fate of it at the moment? And so we've done a conversation across the whole of Middle East. We can see some of it's directly used. So we've been hearing examples of that today, and it might be in landscaping, or we're hearing about Adapsa's thoughts on how we can use it in agriculture. We've heard about recharge. We know it can be used in industry, maybe for cooling or heating, or maybe for some sort of manufacturing. We're able to then track what that looks like. There's also the indirect use of wastewater. So it might be the removal of the water and putting it into the landscape, and there is able to be used in that. But what we can see is that more than half of it is not directly used. There is no thinking around how can we capture this incredibly important resource and doing that. So we're looking at modeling, looking in each of those 3 different countries, also looking at the fate of that model, of the wastewater. How is it being used now? And therefore, what do we have available to use it going forward? And then the third type of modeling, we're looking at the demand. Where is the agriculture? How much is it there? Can we use it? What type of agriculture can we use? We can spot date palms. We can spot different types of cropping systems, alfalfa. What is it we can do, and where and how much is needed? We're looking at environmental water reuse with commitments across the 3 countries for greening of the desert, of planting trees, we can see the landscaping that is so important for both climate change adaptation, land restoration, and also for helping environments. We're able to look at that. And then we're also working with those countries on that industrial water reuse. So we've looked at where the capacity is, how it's being currently used, and then what is the demand? Where can we optimize bringing it together? And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So we've got those 3 strands on the left-hand side that are showing we've now got an up-to-date database, we know where it's being used, and this is the demand. And then on the right-hand side, we're now using AI optimization. We, of course, working with governments, with private sector on this part of how we can then come up with it. And what is really important is in each country that we're working on, we're able to build into the modeling, what are their regulations? What are their priorities? How are they wanting to use wastewater reuse to make sure that the solutions that are being developed, the reuse potential, the reuse prioritization, and the reuse planning reflects those thinkings within the countries and being able to do this. And this gives you some examples of this distribution around various bodies. What can we use it for? Is it irrigated crops? Is it for natural vegetation? Is it for water features? And we're beginning to see how we can optimize based on this. Where will we use the next million cubic meters, and what we can do with that? So where are we implementing them? As I said, we're implementing it in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, and in Egypt. And in each of these different countries, we are working with different partners. In Egypt, we're working with the Arab Water Council. I'm sure many of you enjoy working with them, but also with the League of Arab States, because we can see from these regional bodies, they can see a real potential of taking out these technologies that we're trialing here in these 3 countries and taking it out further to be able to help the MENA region adapt to climate change. We're also working in Saudi Arabia with the Saudi Irrigation Organization, with Dr. Fahed's NWC, and of course the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture. We had a terrific mission there last week, working with the Saudi Irrigation Organization, continuing to optimize, continuing to think how we can bring this planning tool and making sure it meets their needs. And here in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, we're working with environment, we're working with EAD and the sustainable water systems. One of the things we're doing with this is we are now not only training in this region, we're now taking this out to other African states, other Asian states. And this is really important about exporting the capabilities here in the Gulf states out to those others, where we can look at business reuse models. What's the business model for reusing water? What's the economic analysis? How can we take it at the regional level, at the national level, but also in local levels? And we work at many different scales. Over the last 20 years, our organization has been working on the circular economy of water from refugee camps through to regional engagement. So this has given you a flavor of what we do. It's how we're bringing together so many of those aspects that have been spoken about this morning so far. Regulation, policy, capability, capacity, data, and advanced planning and optimization of being able to really take wastewater reuse into the next 20 years as we adapt to the changes in demography, the changes in climate, the changes in how we are using our water. And it might be from food security through to environmental protection. And this is looking at those various aspects. The work on groundwater depletion, groundwater recharge, for example, is really important in many of those depleted aquifers in the region. That desertification, those of us in Riyadh in December, the commitment to land restoration and degradation from COP16 is critical, and there's a $10 billion investment into managing droughts, but also managing land degradation. Think how we can optimize wastewater reuse to hit both those terms of goals, and of course food production with the right safety checks and sustainable water management. It's been my great pleasure to come back to Abu Dhabi, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you. There are 2 minutes there. Yes. What? This one here.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you've been here for so long, and I really appreciate your presentation. It's very informative. How do you see the changes now from the, in this region here for water management? Do you see there's lots of improvements now it's been taken seriously, and how far are we from the high innovative developed countries in the water management, point of view?
Thank you. So I used to be able to drive around Abu Dhabi and Dubai with no problem. I don't know how to find my way back. And that's a symptom of just how fast and how rapid has been the growth here. And we are seeing in our, the colleagues on desalination has been a really important part of being able to support that. But wastewater reuse has to be there. We cannot, we cannot use water just once. That desal water is terribly expensive. So by using it and optimizing it, but being safe in the way we reuse wastewater has to be part of that future. And I see a real leadership coming from this region as an organization organization, we work in the global south. We work in vulnerable and poor countries. But so many of the innovations we can take from here to those countries. This work we're doing here has been fantastic as an example of that. So we see that water security leadership being smart, that water smartness as ever from this region and taking it out. So it's always a great pleasure to come back, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.